Fear takes over once again in France, in the West. And they use fear. We'll talk about it in a few seconds. But look, this is in Canada right now, Toronto. The case of smallpox in St. John O's in Toronto. The authorities are inviting citizens to get injected. Of course, it starts here in Canada and in France. And there, it's a calf from Brittany, which comes out on August 14, 2024. That's today. Look here, there, what they are preparing for us. It smells like preparation for fall. An outbreak of bird flu detected in a poultry farm, the first in France since January 16. They are going to slaughter chickens. Let me tell you this, they are preparing for that. That's clear.
I will comment. I am very comfortable doing that.
First, monkeypox. First, human smallpox, which was very serious, killed 30% of people. Even in North America, it killed 80% of Native Americans. That's why the English, who couldn't beat the French at the time in the Appalachians, distributed smallpox blankets to the Native Americans, who were mostly allies of the French, if you remember that old Quebec story. Yes. And so smallpox killed a lot of people in every generation. It disappeared thanks to the vaccine. Human smallpox is stored in ultra-secure laboratories in 2 countries around the world. And monkeypox is a virus adapted to monkeys that is poorly adapted to humans. So it has always existed. There have been human cases in Africa for a very long time, but human cases are usually mild. There have been some fatal cases in Africa because very malnourished people have no immune defenses, etc. And we were taken out. So if you remember, it's May 2022. The whole world wakes up saying, declaration of emergence of a breastpox pandemic. I don't know if you remember. I remember I was in Belgium that day. I look on the internet to see what's happening.
Yes, just a note. I'll show you. Come on, keep your ideas. Yes, I remember. I had written an article, and at the time, that's what I had released. We had a lot of questions about that since it was the planet.
What was not funny, it was a bit tragic, but what was still very surprising was that this smallpox had exploded on the same day in 10 or 15 different countries all over the world, in Australia, in Sweden, in Canada. I did the course. On the same day, people who had never met, who had never taken a plane. It was totally impossible. That is to say, the virus had been released deliberately. It's not possible otherwise. I said it, I was laughed at, but I was never given any reference against her. And what surprised me at that time was that when I looked at what was happening, that Bill Gates had done a dress rehearsal a year before. So in 2021, it was in 2022. So in 2021, saying that in May 2022, there will be a monkeypox pandemic. I say he is strong because he is able to say that a year before.
He is an astronaut, a good astrologer.
He should turn into a card reader or something. At that time, I saw that he had invested in a new smallpox vaccine in 2019, and that the European Medicines Agency had pre-registered a miracle drug for monkeypox a few months before. And then I didn't understand because they said that this virus is transmitted through the air, but it only affects male homosexuals, so the transmission was only through the anus. And when there were the first cases in France, there were a few cases after the epidemic, it flopped. It only affected male homosexuals and the lesions, like monkeypox. The African cases, a little human that we saw, they are generalized vesicles. The vesicles were mainly around the genitals and the anus. This was not usual for smallpox. I think this virus must have been a doctored virus because it was not a natural virus that we usually see. Besides, I had communicated first in French, which had been worked on in English, which had been around a lot of countries where I made fun of them by saying, "Stop your nonsense. This stuff is nonsense." Unfortunately, there were a few victims. We must pay tribute to the victims, but all that fell apart shortly after. Now it's starting again. They're putting us back on the table to scare us. After bird flu, this is a flu virus adapted to birds. Some strains can be quite dangerous to birds, poultry, chicken farms, but they do not have the genes to transmit well to humans. They are adapted to poultry and not humans. That's why Bill Gates Anthony Fauci, all of them had funded studies in laboratories for many viruses to try to make them dangerous for animals, to try to make them dangerous for humans, and that they could be transmitted. They never really succeeded with the bird flu because I remember it was 15 years ago or more. It was around the time of the China flu pandemic. There had been some alerts around the world of bird flu in Holland and other countries. Human deaths were very few, just a handful. There was a chicken farmer in Holland who had flocks with thousands of chickens, and he would go into a shed and he would sniff out chicken particles en masse. And when they also had an episode of bird flu, of course, he breathed in astronomical quantities of virus. And some breeders have had serious forms. There are a very small number who have died, but it was never a pandemic. So what scares me is that I know that in the United States, in laboratories, there have been reports about this. They have rigged viruses in the test tubes that could be very dangerous to humans. Is that what they have in mind? What scares me a little is that they're starting to say, watch out, everyone is going to die of bird flu, that Europe has already ordered tens of millions of doses of vaccines when there have been 0 human cases. Not long ago, I was watching an English program on American TV where there was an expert who said, oh yeah, watch out. There were a few chickens that died in the United States, but there wasn't even a human case yet. Be careful. This virus is going to be very nasty. It will kill half of all humans. When I am told that a virus will kill more than half of the people, I am very reassured.
Well, yes, normally it's quite quick, but here we see it. What I know about the WHO, it's July 29, so it's recent. Miracle Beard, once again, we have a solution coming. Here we go, launching a new initiative to accelerate once again. So it takes fear to accelerate all of this, to justify the acceleration.
Again, the real messenger vaccines, which are not vaccines. The real messenger has never made vaccines. It is a dangerous product, which is ineffective.
Yes.
So just to finish, why do I say that? When we say that a virus kills at 50-80%, it reassures me. A virus that kills too many people doesn't spread, hence this. A smart virus to spread needs to not be too dangerous, because otherwise, if it kills everyone. The first SARS, the first Chinese coronavirus, where the bat had not rubbed shoulders with a pangolin at the time, it was with a civet. There had been a pandemic, there had been cases, even in Canada. It was more in Toronto, in the Toronto General Hospital, which was a large high-rise building. There had been deaths, even among caregivers. They had gone a little to the right, to the left. But finally, after a few weeks, a few months, the pandemic stopped because this virus was very dangerous. It could kill the early variants. Afterwards, the variants weakened, but the very first variants killed 40% of people. These were people who were in direct contact, who came into the room, who had no protection, who did not know that people were infected. But a virus that is too dangerous, we have seen it in a general worldwide demonstration. It flops, it spreads a little, then the new variants are less and less virulent. Then the first very virulent variants killed too many people too quickly, and it does not spread.
And we want to remind you that what you say in passing, for people who don't know, and before the media tries to debunk this, is real science. It's the mechanics of viruses. That's how a virus works.